Today we're learning to create linear or straight line equations from everyday situations. Now this type of work sometimes features in your exam where you're given a situation and from that you need to work out the equation or the formula that it represents, and you have to use that formula to work out certain aspects of the question that's posed. So the thing with this type of question, the axes, if we were going to draw a graph, they're generally not going to be in terms of x and y, okay? What they'll do is they'll be replaced by something like a cost, a payment kind of thing, or a volume. So the letters might be C, P, V, possibly. X might be replaced with time, T, or hours, H, or maybe miles, okay? We can still work the gradient out as M, and we can still use the vertical axis intercept as 0C if we're trying to work some things out. Okay, so some examples of this type of work could be if you think about a taxi. If you get into a taxi, they'll charge you a fixed rate first of all. Once they charge you the fixed rate, they will then charge you a mile charge. So for every mile that you go in the taxi, they'll charge you. So at the end of the payment, it's going to be your mile charge plus your fixed charge. Or if you think about hiring a venue, if you hire a venue, there'll be a setup charge that you'll be charged in the venue, and then there'll be possibly an hourly rate after that for each hour that you use the venue. So it's that type of thing that we're going to be working on today. I'm just going to work on two jobs, okay? So the first job I'm going to be looking at is Erica, the electrician, okay? And the second one will be Pete the plumber, believe it or not. And what we'll be doing is we're looking at two different ways, and they're quite simple in terms of the way that things actually work, but they're quite simple, and I'm going to step you through this question, okay? So this shouldn't take us very long today at all in the video. So two quick questions on creating linear or straight line equations from everyday situations. So Erica is an electrician and earns £40 per hour. So let's create a table to show her earnings. Okay, so £40 every hour. So I'm just going to start here, and I'm going to go for if she doesn't work at all, so zero hours, she's going to get zero pay. Okay, so if she works for 1 hour, okay, she's going to get £40 because it's £40 every hour, so it's a 40 that would go there. If she works for 2 hours, well, I would expect she would earn another £40, so that would give us 80. If she works for 3 hours, I'd be thinking about another £40, that'll give us 120. 4 hours, another 40, up to 160, and then maybe 5 hours, we'll stop there. Okay, 5 hours, that would give us 200. Now just to complete the table, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in this part over here. And remember on the top, that was the hours that she works on the top. Okay, so that's going to be the hours I'm going to write. And the letter I'm going to use for hours, well, just H, okay? So at the bottom, this is how much she's paid. So this will be her pay, okay? And down below I've been told really what to use. So that's pay, and that's going to be in pounds. And the letter we're going to use there is going to be P. Okay, so instead of the X that we would normally use, we're going to use H. And instead of a Y that we would normally use in a table like this, we're going to use P. It's a everyday situation that we're trying to evaluate here. Okay then, so that's the first part of the question. So just breaking this down into small parts, what I'd like to do next is to plot a graph using H, hours, and P, pay. So hours or time would always go along the X direction or the X axis that it would normally be. So this here is going to be the H axis, okay? So and that's going to be hours that we're going to be working along here, hours. And up and down the way, that's going to be the pay, so that's going to be the, if I can call it, the P axis. And okay, so that's going to be the pay, and that's going to be in pounds, okay, as we're going along there. Okay, so let's set up this graph just based on the numbers that I've got there. So along on the horizontal axis, I'm going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to just space it out a wee bit. So there's 0, just right on there. And I'm going to go 1, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, and 5 hours. Okay, so that's me just drawing the graph along there. And going up the way, I can see I've got about 10 there, so I'm going to cut it into 20 pounds for each grid. So it's 20, 40, 60, 80, 100 pounds, 120, 140, 160, 180, and that's going to be 200. So that will take us up to the fifth value that's there, or the fifth hour, and let's see, we're adding on 20, so I'll just go a wee bit further up, 240, and that's up to 260 to there, okay? So that's my graph set up for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plot the graph, and remember these will be my coordinates. So 0, 0 is my first one, so I've already got a dot there. So there's 0, 0. 140, so 1 along and 40 up, there we go there. 280, 2 along and 80, and there we are there. 3 and 120, and there we go. You can see it's starting to form a straight line for us, or a linear equation, or a linear line. And we're going to go for 4, 160, 4, 160, and finally 5, 200. Okay, and if I've worked these values out, that should form a straight line. So I'm going to draw a line through these points that are here. So there we go. So let's draw a line through them. There we go. All the way up to there. Right. So that there is my straight line. So just following on from that type of work here, what I can see from that is that I can see that every time I move along 1, I go up 40, along 1 and up 40. So same as the table up above, you can see that there's a difference of 40 between it. So that's really going to be my gradient. So I could just take that, I could just state that my gradient m equals 40, but what I'll do is, how about just doing maybe a bit of work on the gradient as well. So I'm going to use y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1 to work out my gradient. I'm still using x and y there. That's okay, as long as when I write the final equation, I use the letters p and h. So let's go for that. I'm going to pick 2 points. So if I pick, why don't I just pick that point and that point? So that point there is 0, 0 down the bottom there. This point here is 1 and 40. Okay, 1 along 40 up. So 40 take away 0. 1 take away 0. That's going to leave me with 40 over 1, which gives me that number of 40 that we were saying for the gradient. Okay, but I can just see it on the graph there. Every time I move along 1, I got 40 pounds. Right, so that's me got the gradient. I'm going to look at the axis intercept, so it's the p-axis intercept. I'm just going to call the value c still. So c is going to be equal to, where it cuts through is 0. So 0, 0 is going to be the point. So the intercept is going to be, the p-axis intercept is going to be 0, 0. So that's me done that. I'm then going to write the equation based on the information that I've got above there, okay? So remember what we've got. Instead of y, I'm going to use p. Instead of x, I'm going to use h. So what I'll do first of all is I'm just going to write down the normal equation that we would always start with anyway. Y equals mx plus c. So remember what I was saying for y, we're going to replace that with p. I'm going to use my gradient m as 40 because I worked it out. So that's going to be 40. Instead of x, I'm going to be writing in the hours, which is h. Okay, and instead of the c value, I'm going to be putting in the value that I worked out, which is 0. To tidy that up a bit, I know that that equals 0, so I'm just going to sort that out and say that that's my equation of the line. So if we were using x and y, that would be y equals 40x, but instead of the x and y, we're using p and h, so p is equal to 40h. Okay, so let's move on. Use your formula to find how much Erica will earn in 8 hours. So the thing with this type of question here, you probably know what the answer is, but you must show that you work out the formula and you use the formula. So let's start with it. So P is equal to 40H. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sub that 8 hours into there. Okay, so the pay is going to be 40 times 8. So that's going to give me £320. So the pay is going to be £320 for there. Okay, so that's how much Erica will earn. Okay. And for F, what we've got is how many hours will she work to earn £280? Again, you might be able to work that out for something that's quite simple, but I must use the formula for it. So the formula P equals 40H. I know that what she's earning is 280, so that's going to be 280 on the left-hand side there. So what we'll do is I'll just swap that round, and what we'll do is we'll just use our skills and knowledge of solving equations. So I'll divide this side by 40, and I'll divide that side by 40. Reason why I'm doing that, eliminating the 40 that's there. So H is equal to, so cancel that out, that'll be dividing by 10 top and bottom, 4 into 28 is going to give me 7, and that will be 7 hours. Okay, so that's all we're looking at in this type of equation here. This equation here didn't have, like we were talking about the taxi driver, a fixed rate that when you go in you have a fixed charge, it starts and then it takes off from there every mile. This one starts at 0, which is one of the simpler versions. Next one we're going to do is we're going to look at a plumber who has a call-out charge. Okay, so this one here we've got Pete the plumber. Okay, Pete the plumber, and he earns £30 per hour. So every hour he gets £30, but he has a call-out fee of £20. So if he comes along and looks at the work and he assesses it and doesn't really do any work, but he analyses it, that will be £20 that will be charging you. So for 0 hours of work, he's going to charge £20, okay? And we're going to then go up by £30 each time. So I'm going to add on 30 to that because every hour he's going to earn £30 on top of what he's already charged. So that's going to be 50. For 2 hours, it's going to be 80. For 3 hours, it's going to be 110. For 4 hours, it's going to be 140. For 5 hours, we're going to be up at £170. Okay, so on the left hand side here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use the information that I've got here. I've changed the letters about a bit. We're going to use T for time. Okay, so this is time. It's going to be hours anyway. And what we're going to be using is the letter T for this one here. For the bottom part here, instead of pay, I'm going to change it to cost. So this is going to be the cost. So this is what it's going to cost. It's going to be in pounds, and I'm going to use the letter C for cost. Okay. Right then, so we're going to do the same thing as we started with in the previous example. And what we're going to do is we're going to plot a graph. Okay, so that's 0, 20. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to just mark this out. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Okay, that's 0, that's right there. I've got 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120. Remember, I'm always writing the number on the lines. That's what the lines are representing. So 140, 160, 180, 200, 220, 240 and up to 260. On my axes, remember, the axes that I've got here, at the bottom here, my axis is going to be the time axis. So this is going to be T. Okay, this is going to be time, and that's in hours. Okay. On the vertical, it's going to be the cost. So that's going to be C, and this is going to be the cost. And I'm going to say that that's in pounds. Okay, so that's what my graph is about there. Okay. Okay, for a title for the graph, what we could just say the cost, the plumber cost maybe. Okay, plumber cost. Right, so let's plot our graph, and I'm just going to use the values that we've generated up above just as we moved along. So 0, 20. So we're starting up here, not at 0, 0, okay, because there's a call out fee. 1 and 50. So 50 I'm going to say is right in the middle between 40 and the 60 that's there. For 2, I've got 80. So that's right on the lines that are crossing over. For 3, I've got 110, so that'll be in there. 4 is going to be 140, so it's going to be there. And 5 is up at 170, which is in between there. Okay, draw a straight line through it, and that'll give me my graph. Okay, so that's my graph. So from that, I'm going to be working out my gradient. I know the gradient if I can remember what I did in the last one. So for every time I move along one place or 1 hour, I'm going to go up the way. I'm going up the way by £30. So my gradient is going to be £30. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to use that point just to calculate it, just so you can see another way of working that one out. So it was 150, or taken from the table up above. This one here is 0.20. So it was 0.20, and I'll just use that one as well. So remember, what we'll do is we'll work out the gradient is y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. I'm going to go for 50 take away 20 on the top, because that's a horizontal, and I've got 1 take away 0. So that leaves me with 30 on the top all over 1, which gives me a gradient of 30. But again, I can see that, so it's going up in 30s all the time. So that's the link to the table that we've got up above. We can see that that's just always going up in 30s. Okay, right, my C value, this time it's not 0, it's going to be 20. I can see that straight from the graph that I've got there, or from the table 0, 20, and that's the coordinates. So the C axis intercept just where it cuts through, is going to be 0, 20. So there's my values that I'm going to take into my formula. So to write the formula for this one here, all I'm going to do is I'm going to start with y equals mx plus c. Okay, remember, I'm not going to finish with that. I can't finish with that, or I'll be losing some marks if I use x and y in my formula. Instead of y, I'm going to use c. So c equals, instead of m, I worked it out as 30. So it's 30 pounds per hour, every hour. So that's 30. Instead of x, I'm going to be using t. And lastly, the c value we said was 20. So that's plus 20 there. So there's my formula for this situation that I've got here for the plumber with the call-out charge. So I'm going to do a little bit of work, just two last pieces of work here at the bottom using the formula. So I'm going to use the formula to find out how much people charge for 8 hours of work. Okay, so we'll start with the formula. C equals 30t plus 20. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute 8 in where the time is, so that's 8 going in there. So I've got C is equal to 30 times 8, okay, plus 20. 30 times 8 will give me 240, plus 20 pounds, that'll give me 260 pounds. Okay, so that's what his charge is going to be there. So that's what he's going to charge for 8 hours of work. Okay. Okay, and the last part that we've got here is that if he charges £200, how many hours did he actually work for? So let's start with the formula again. Remember, you must use the formula, must. Okay, so if you just put down the answer, you probably get 0 marks for that. Okay, you must show the use of the formula in this. So we're going to substitute in 200 for the charge. So he charged £200. So that's the C value that's there. Not just our C as in where it cuts through the axis, but just C for the charge. 30 times T plus 20. Now I've got an equation to solve. Okay, so I'm going to reverse them round. Okay, so 30t plus 20 equals 200. Okay, not done anything there, just rearranged it for myself just to make it easier. I'm going to take 20 from both sides. Okay, it eliminates that 20 that's there. That was the reason for doing that. That gives me £180 on that side there. I'm going to divide by 30 because I don't want 30t. If I divide by 30, 30 divided by 30 is 1, so they basically cancel out, and I'll divide the right hand side by 30 as well. Same on the left, same on the right. So t, the time that you must have worked for, so if I divide top and bottom by 10, so that'll take the zeros away, 3 into 18 will give me 6. So you must have worked for 6 hours for the charge of £200. Okay, so that's basically it. That's what we're working on here. But some people get confused about how to create that, and all you have to do is make sure that you read through the question clearly and try to understand as best as possible how to go about creating the graph, creating the formula, and make sure that you answer the question that's posed. Okay, that's just finished this part here. This is creating line or straight line equations or linear equations from everyday situations.